Am I the a-hole for not babysitting for my sister-in-law anymore after she called the police on me? My sister-in-law and I have an agreement. She watches my kids 3 days a week, and I watch hers 3 days a week. This agreement has stood since March 2020 without issues. Any changes have been discussed weeks in advance. A couple of weeks ago, we had an argument. The next day, I brought my kids to her house, dropped them off, and left. I didn't speak to my sister-in-law because when one of us is in a rush like I was, it's standard for us to just let the kids out, stay in the car, and drive off when you see the door open. I drove to work about 40 minutes away. When I got there, I had about 20 missed calls and even more texts, all from my sister-in-law, all saying she didn't want to watch the kids given our argument. Her first text arrived a little before I got to her place, but I didn't see it until I got to work because my phone is always on silent when I drive. I rang her, said I'll arrange to work from home, then come get the kids. She said I have 45 minutes to get back to her place or she would call the police. I told my supervisor the situation, and she said I could leave after I did a few things. This delayed me 20 minutes. When I got back to my sister-in-law's, just over an hour later, she said she'd already called the police when the 45 minutes ran out. I then had to stick around long enough to tell the officer that I didn't abandon my children. There was just a communication issue. Sister-in-law and I had another shouting match later over this. I arranged other childcare for my kids, and I've been mostly ignoring her since. However, she reached out and apologized, and has asked if I'd be willing to go back to the old childcare arrangement. I've told her to go screw herself. I work with kids. If I got child abandonment in my record, I would never work in my field again, which she knew, and her calling the police was a massive overreaction. So if she needs a babysitter, she can go whistle for all I care. She said that if I checked my phone, talked to her that morning, or came back when I was supposed to, she would not have needed to call the police. And I did this to myself, as she gave me a warning with that first text, and I could have checked my phone or spoken to her directly when I got to her place, all of which she says she would have done if she were in my position, given that we'd argued the night before. I've told her that if she thinks I'm babysitting for her, she's freaking delusional, and she's on her own. Because of my refusal, it's looking like she may have to quit her job, because my brother and her would pay more for a babysitter than they would earn from her working. My mother and brother have both called me Nihal because there were no consequences to her calling the police, and that while she overreacted, she's apologized. So if I really forgive her, I'll let us move on. This income loss would also mean that she, my brother, and my niece and nephew might need to move somewhere cheaper, that my brother might have to take on extra hours at work, and in an extreme scenario, they may even be completely unable to live independently, meaning they'd have to move in with their parents, who live several hours away. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. The only delusional person here is sister-in-law. Who calls the police on an essential worker out of spite? Let her struggle to find childcare or lose her job. You could have easily lost yours. In the name of full disclosure, I'm not exactly an essential worker, but my service has remained open, and I need to go into my workplace a few days a week to get confidential documents, among other things. It could have been bigger than your job. It could impact the custody of your kids. Your family's delusional if they think you are the a-hole. Your sister-in-law's actions have consequences, and would be lucky if you ever let her be close to your kids ever again. If your mom or anybody else complains you do not look after the kids, they can look after them themselves. Not the a-hole. Don't let her reel you back in. She still blames you for her calling the police, which means she isn't sorry and would do it again. Her losing you as a babysitter is a consequence of her actions. Forgot that part. That's essentially a non-apology if it ever was one. She said that if I checked my phone, talked to her that morning, or came back when I was supposed to, she would not have needed to call the police, and I did this to myself. Basically, she darvoed. Deny, accuse, reverse victim, and offender. Not only it is gross to up and decide to not watch the kids as per your agreements because she is mad at you, indeed take it out on the kids, but also to let you know by text after you had already left. She was trying to create another argument. She beyond escalated this to a place it never should have gone. Calling the police and risking your licensure. Your mom and brother need to take a flying leap though, for encouraging you to sweep this under the rug. She has shown you her true colors. Now believe her and follow your gut instinct of cutting her out. And if she complains that she has to leave her work, remind whichever flying monkey she sends to harass you that she did this to herself. Not a-hole, OP. Not a-hole. She wanted to escalate it? Enjoy the outcome of the escalation. I'm annoyed that the brother and mother-in-law aren't telling her that she messed up. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for saying that taking care of my kids by myself was relaxing? My wife thinks I am devaluing her contribution to our family and implying she's got it easy. My 40 male, wife 35 female, and I have 2 kids. My wife is a stay-at-home mom while I am an air traffic controller. My son is 13 months old and my daughter is nearly 3 years old. Our issue occurred because my wife has been a bit stir-crazy during this pandemic and feels trapped being at home constantly. I try to help by having weekend outings outdoors, but there is only so much we can safely do. She was particularly upset when she found out that because her parents and siblings who live in another state have finally been fully vaccinated, they were going to have a get-together and spend a weekend together after a year apart. She initially intended to take the kiddos with her, but due to scheduling issues with some important doctor's appointments for my son, she wouldn't be able to go. I suggested to her that she still goes, and I'll take care of the kiddos while she's gone, and use some time off of work. She initially left and said there was no way I could handle the kids on my own, and that daddy playtime after work hasn't prepared me for handling 2 kids on my own. I was pretty miffed by this comment and told her I guarantee I can handle it. I'm an ATC. It's not like I can't handle stress. We discussed it further and I told her I really think she needs to take this trip for the sake of her mental health. After some convincing, she decided to go. And over the course of Tuesday to Sunday, I took care of the kids, cleaned, and took care of all meals. I got my son to his appointments. We played outside since we finally got some nice weather, and it all went off without a hitch. The problem was that I think my wife thought I was going to be completely out of my depth, and sitcom husband style have the Rugrats destroying the house while I helplessly looked on. This is not what happened. I enjoyed my time with my kids, and throughout the week as she checked in, multiple times a day, she seemed a bit annoyed how calm I was about taking on this responsibility by myself. When she arrived home and saw everything was good, she seemed relieved. But when I commented that I had an extremely relaxing week/weekend with the kids, she blew up on me and said I was being completely insensitive and that acting like I had it so easy was like coming into her workplace and commenting on how easy her job is. I disagree. I was just trying to assure her that the kids didn't get neglected and that it wasn't a hardship to take care of them. She doesn't see it that way. Am I the a-hole? No a-holes here. I have 2 kids and 3 step-kids, and it's a nightmare. Looking after the kids on your own for a few days isn't something that's going to cause burnout in comparison to being with them 24/7. So your ability to cope in this situation isn't a representative example for her to be resentful over, or you to be particularly proud of. Having said that, isn't ADC the job with the highest self-harm rate in the world? If that's true, no wonder you're good at dealing with stress. Not a-hole. Rather than being excited that her husband can take care of the kids with no issues and using it as a chance to take breaks more often, which it sounds like she needs, she wanted you to fail somehow? Perhaps it is her stress talking. I don't think what you did was devaluing at all. My husband finds it fun to take all 3 kids grocery shopping, and I think it is a nightmare to wrangle 3 kids at a large grocery store with samples tempting them everywhere. So, guess who does the grocery shopping with all 3 kids while I make a nice family meal for us on Saturday? Pre-pandemic, of course. She sounds a bit on edge and needs more breaks and possibly some counseling to help her. Maybe set up every month a full day or 2 for her to do something with friends. Being a full-time stay-at-home mom is hard since it feels like a never-ending day with no markers or milestones. I about climbed the walls during maternity leave with each of my kids, and I adored being at home with them. Take care of her and your family. You are doing great. It sounds like your wife really needed that trip. Also, you weren't being insensitive about her caretaking abilities. She's the one who was being insensitive. How long of an opinion does she have of you that she thinks you'd be utterly incapable of watching your own kids for a few days? Not a-hole. No a-holes here. You also need to realize, as does she, that you had them for a weekend by yourself. She has them nearly all the time by herself. It's much easier to get the kids to behave well when it's new but still apparent, especially when things go off without a hitch. The longer you do it, the more hitches you'll come across. Lockdown is getting to her, but you're not being insensitive as you should be, I personally feel. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not cooking after everyone insulted what I was making? I'm 17 female, the oldest of 5. Ever since COVID, my parents have left me in charge at home and have me cooking dinner most nights, 6 out of 7 to be exact. My siblings and I are going to school virtually, so we're in the house together all day, although they're going out to friends more now. There were always complaints about the food I was cooking. Don't want pasta, nor rice, why more chicken? Used up too many groceries for one dish. But lately, it has been bugging me more. I made pizza one night. I did a regular pizza because I was tired of complaints about the choices I was making. But even that wasn't good enough. My siblings all wanted more cheese and said it was horrible. Siblings are 15 male, 14 male, 12 female, 10 female. My dad wanted pineapple and ham on his pizza. My mom said pizza wasn't what she wanted to come home to on a Wednesday afternoon. I said nothing. I didn't even show I was frustrated. But the next day, I didn't make them anything. I made myself some spicy chicken noodles. Had it all cleaned up and everything before anyone got home, and then everyone was home and they were hungry and complaining. And then my parents exploded because they said I was being petty and rude, and they threatened to ground me because I didn't do all my chores. I told them they should have thought about that before crapping all over everything, and I was doing more than enough. And why ground me when I never even leave the house anyway? I'm basically a live-in nanny at this point, and I get treated worse than they would treat a paid nanny. They said it was a wrong move to let them go without food, especially my siblings. I guess I can see why that would be an a-hole move, but honestly, they should be more appreciative too. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. All 4 of your whiny siblings are old enough to minimally operate a microwave. Your parents are fools to think that grounding a person that is home all of the time is going to have any effect. Maybe there could be a night for each sibling to make a dinner. Your parents could cook on the weekends. Seriously, my 8-year-old literally made breakfast for my husband, 3-year-old, and me this morning. Granted, it was toast and, already, hard-boiled eggs, but it was buttered, salted, and plated when I came down. Literally no excuse for one person out of 6 to be expected to do all of the cooking with these age ranges. Yes, my daughters were making their sack lunches in 1st grade, under supervision to prevent a bag full of only chips, cookies, and fruit roll-ups. I hope that things get better for the OP. Not the a-hole, and this is classic. Pawning off this much work on the oldest daughter. Your parents should redistribute the chore load. No one should be forced to feed 7 people every night, especially if they're going to hear complaints about it. You have 7 family members, why not assign each one a dinner once a week? With some allowances made for the 10 and 12-year-old, of course. But even they should be able to learn to boil pasta and heat up sauce with supervision. Let me guess, you have to clean the dishes too? If I were you, I would have made my throwaway user named Basin Cinderella. Most of the time I clean up, yeah. Occasionally my mom has stepped in and done it, but it's normally paired with witching about how much there is to clean up. So, you do the cooking and cleaning for 7 people 6 or 7 days a week. What do those other 6 people in your household do for chores, other than eat your food and complain about it? My siblings don't do anything. My parents, I'm not even sure really. My mom cooks 1 night a week. They take care of their bedroom and bathroom, but other than that, I don't know. We have really messy areas of the home, but I'm only one person, and I'm not going to take all the housework on my shoulders either. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for being upset after my mother-in-law criticized my parenting and called my daughter disgusting? So I, 34 female, and my husband, 37 male, have 2 children, 12 female and 7 male. A few days ago, my husband, my kids, and I went on a walk with my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, and her kids. Don't worry, we all followed corona regulations. My kids were walking with their cousins when mother-in-law threw a disgusted look at my daughter and said, "You should really put her on a diet. Kids shouldn't be so fat and disgusting. What are you feeding her?" Just to clarify, my daughter isn't fat and has always been on the thinner side. I blew up at her and told her that I wouldn't allow anyone to talk about my children like that. But she got very upset and said, I wonder why my son married such a snowflake that can't even handle the truth. This was the last straw for me, and I took my husband and the kids and left. But apparently, mother-in-law told the rest of the family something completely different, and they have been blowing up my phone non-stop. Reddit. Am I the a-hole here? Not the a-hole. Time for your husband to step up and keep his mom/extended family in check, or just go no contact. Piggybacking here because I grew up with a grandmother who, loving as she was in my teens, kept reminding me I should hit the gym more often. Would watch my food like a hawk when we were at parties, would ask me if I really needed to eat a second slice of pie or whatever, and would compare me to my slimmer sister or more athletic cousins. It took a toll. I was by no means fat. I would define myself as the curvier size 6. I'm from a place where sizes 0 to 4 are the norm. But always healthy and never had any issues with potential related diseases. It wasn't until my mid-20s that I stopped hearing her whenever she spoke about my body or weight. And in my teens, for someone who already had a flaky self-esteem, having her around was always like a kick. When my mom heard the comments, she would tell her to shut up and should reaffirm that I was perfect the way I was. But I already heard the comments. OP definitely needs to get husband on board, and they both need to be very clear with mother-in-law. Not the a-hole. Even if your daughter was overweight, that was a disgusting thing for your mother-in-law to say about a kid. Surefire way to cause an eating disorder no matter how much the kid weighs. I think people shouldn't talk about someone else's weight in general, but preteen and teen years are such formative years. I think we all especially need to shut up about their bodies. Not the a-hole. Keep your kids away from mother-in-law. It's toxic people like that mess with kids' self-esteem. I hope your husband supports you. Not the a-hole. You are a fantastic mother defending your children against someone attacking them, especially a family member. I hope your husband has your and your daughter's back and isn't backing his mother. He has a choice. He's either on his daughter's side or his mother's. I gotta wonder, you said this was the last straw. What else has your mother-in-law been saying or doing? Also, in my experience, people who call other people snowflakes and people who can't handle the truth are bullies who just use that as an excuse to be hurtful and miserable human beings who, ironically, can't take the truth when people call them on it. Again, not only are you not the a-hole, you are a hero for standing up for your daughter. I wish my parents stood up to my grandmothers like you did.
Update. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to buy a house 3 hours away from my workplace? Original post. I don't know how to start this. I, 27 female, have been with my fiancé, 28 male, for 5 years. We've just recently saved enough for a deposit on a house, and he's found this cottage in the middle of nowhere, 2 hours away from where we currently live. The thing is, I already work an hour away. I am a nursery practitioner, and I love my workplace. I've been there since I was 20 and have worked my way up to a room lead position. Living 3 hours away from my job would not be ideal, but my fiancé won't budge on this house. He says it's perfect, within our budget, and quirky enough to fit our taste and home style. I've tried to communicate with him about this issue multiple times, bringing up the fact that there aren't even any nurseries in that area currently hiring. I don't want to find another job that's further out and have to start from the bottom again. He says it'll all work out if I just stop overthinking it, and that I've been at my current job for so long that it would be nice for me to start fresh. Another issue is that I want children. They've always been a huge deal breaker for me, and I don't think it would be a good idea to live so remotely when it comes to raising kids. We would have to get them to and from school or nursery before and after work every day. The nearest school or nursery is a 30-minute drive away from the house he wants, and we both start work fairly early and finish quite late. It would also be an issue in terms of their freedom as they grow up. I think it would be horrible to have to rely on your parents for transportation all the time and miss out on plans if they can't drive you. He really thinks I'm being dramatic about this and that I'll just figure it out. So, am I the a-hole for not wanting to move so far away from my job and basically all civilization? Now for the top comments before reading the update. not the a-hole. You two are not on the same page. You need to sort that out before you get married. I am desperately trying to sort it out. I'm considering telling him that I will end the engagement if he continues to be unreasonable and doesn't consider my feelings on the matter. If he won't let you have a say in where you live and thinks he gets to make the decision, that is not a partnership. The 50s called and they want your fiancé back. Purchasing a home is a 2 yes or it's a no decision. If he doesn't think you're intelligent enough to know what you want in a home and where, you need to end the engagement. Take half the money saved for the home and put it aside for when you have a partner who respects and loves you enough to value your opinion and want you to be happy, not just give in to his wants. Not the a-hole. Y'all didn't talk about where you wanted to live. You both should have discussed where exactly you wanted a home. You don't have to move somewhere you don't want to live. We did discuss it. We both want a nice cottage that's away from lots of people, but there are options near us, and even more that are actually closer to my job, that still have access to regular buses. There are even a few up for sale in a town with a train station within a reasonable walking distance. I don't know why he's suddenly so set on this house that's so far out, when we have plenty of available options that wouldn't move us hours away. Not the a-hole. If you've combined your funds, immediately remove your contributions from the account and safeguard the money. He absolutely will use all of it to buy the cottage. His plan is to isolate you and keep you away from your network of people. Luckily, I control our finances because I'm better with numbers, so I've already transferred my half of the savings into a different account. He won't even notice. He's usually very sweet and considerate, so I'm not sure what's gotten into him about this house. He loves my family, and we have the same friend group since we've known each other since high school, so I don't think he's trying to isolate me. Now for the update. I wasn't expecting to be able to update this fast, but here we are. First off, I want to thank everyone who commented on my last post, and also add some context, as I realized my last post may have been lacking some. My fiancé and I have been together for 5 years, but I've known him for 12. In all the time I've known him, especially since we got together, he's always been sweet, taken my feelings into consideration, and hasn't actively ignored my opinion like this. It's always been a 2 yes, 1 no situation for decisions before this. We had a good relationship otherwise. We had date nights once a fortnight. We enjoyed each other's company, had aligned plans for the future, and shared the same ideals for a relationship. He watched me go through a few quite bad relationships over the years before we got together and did his best to be the opposite of my exes. Though he's always been quite pushy when it comes to sexual intimacy, so I guess that's an issue. But other than that, it was great, and we actually had a lot of talks about what we wanted in a house. We had agreed that we wanted a house or a cottage, either the same distance away or closer to my work. Somewhat remote, but still with a town or a city easily accessible by public transport and car. I'm not sure why he suddenly switched to wanting a house so far out from everything and everyone we both know. We live in the UK, and a 2-hour drive can have you in basically a whole other world. Anyway, the actual update. I had annual leave from work yesterday, and my now ex-fiancé was having a work-from-home day, something he's been doing more and more frequently lately. This is another reason he's so okay with the house he wants, because he can just switch to full-time work from home. In the morning, I sat down with him and tried to bring up the house. I laid out the same points from my last post yet again, and told him I am under no circumstances leaving my job. I love it, and I do not want to search for another. I brought up the countless other houses that fit our criteria and are closer to my work, some of which we have already viewed. We haven't even viewed the place he wants yet, as we haven't had the time, and I told him I do not want to, because I already know it's not what I want. I also asked him if he really thought it would be okay for me to have a 6-hour round commute every day, especially considering my shift starts at 8 a.m. so I would have to leave by 5 a.m. every morning and be up by around 4 a.m. My shifts typically finish at 5:30 p.m., so I wouldn't even be back home until 8:30 p.m. Would he be okay doing all the childcare in the future, housework, and just everything that needed to be done because I would not be home for any of it? He didn't seem to take any of it to heart and still insisted I could find another job. maybe even one not in childcare. And that's what finally pushed me over the edge. Childcare has been my dream since I was a little girl, and I managed to find an absolute dream of a workplace that I know many childcare practitioners would kill to work for. How could I possibly leave that all behind when I've worked so hard for it? He told me he sat on this house, so either I accept it or I leave. I chose to leave. I gave his ring back and told him we're done, that he's not being the sweet, considerate man I fell in love with, and that I don't know why he can't see my side of things in this. I do not want to live a life with somebody who doesn't consider how I feel in all of this. This completely shocked him, and he started begging me to rethink that we could figure something out, but I refused and went to pack my things. I'm staying with my brother and his wife now, which is nice because they live closer to my workplace, a 30-minute drive instead of an hour, and I get to spend time with my little nieces. I am hurting, but I also feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I do not deserve to have my opinion disregarded, and he certainly did not value it. I guess it's onwards and upwards, as they say, but I definitely won't be dating for a long time after this. He didn't even give up. We can figure something out, means his option is still on the table. He just wants to keep debating even after you dumped him. Man really wants that house. I'm betting he can't afford it without her, though. And/or she does a lot of work around the house, and with her gone, he's going to have to start cooking and cleaning again. Oh, damn. He thought he could strong-arm you into agreeing with him. He thought you would relent because you were engaged and would never walk away. And then you called his bluff and he realized he didn't hold the control over you he thought he did. Good on you for calling his bluff and getting rid of him. He would have 100% used that tactic again and again if you had stayed with him. Mask definitely came off. Next story. Am I the a-hole for vetoing my wife's car purchase in the dealership and walking her out of there without looking at the car she picked out? So my 29 male wife, 27 female, is a stay-at-home mom by her choice until the kids are old enough to go to school. Her older Honda SUV recently bit the dust when it needed some major repairs that totaled more than the value of the car. This happened right at the beginning of my work week, so unfortunately, I didn't have the time to sit with her and look at cars immediately. I told her she could do some research first, or she could wait until my days off and we could do the research together. I gave her a maximum budget of $20,000, but said it was flexible if she found something she really liked. In the meantime, I lent her my car, a Mustang Mach-E, and took public transit or Uber to work during the week. On one of my half days, I got a call from my wife saying that I needed to come to a dealership after work to look at a new car she wanted. I got a sinking feeling knowing she went to a dealership without me, knowing how predatory they can be, so I asked for the address. It was a Lexus dealer. I asked who recommended it, and she said that one of her friends has a boyfriend who works there, and that they would work out a nice deal for her. That friend happens to drive a Lexus and managed to get my wife in love with her car. I got off work and drove over to the dealership. On the phone with my wife, I located her and this car sales professional. I asked if she had seen and driven the car. She said yes, and that she liked it. I asked the salesman, "How much is it?" out the door. He said, "Well, your wife and I were discussing some options. How much do you have down?" I said, "Honey, we're not buying a car today. Let's go." She asked why, and I said because he can't give us a straight answer about how much the car costs. He said hold on and printed out the sheet. The used 2020 Lexus GX460 she was looking at was an eye-watering $56,000 after taxes, fees, and add-ons. I said, "No, honey, that's not what we agreed on." She asked if I could at least look at the car before we left, but I said no. The salesman tried to butter me up and sell me on the car, saying they could work on the price, but I just took the keys from my wife and left. Eventually, I was able to sit her down and show her some much more affordable options that wouldn't require us to finance the car and go back into debt. She ended up purchasing a nice used Honda Pilot Touring that she liked. That car, purchase price plus some overdue maintenance, came out to about $21,000. This incident, in the grand scheme of marriage, was a blip. But she did say I seemed cold and unreceptive to what she wanted at the dealership. And I defended myself by saying that the sales strategy at dealerships is sometimes to make one spouse fall in love with a car and feel like the salesperson is on their side so that they might purchase it even if it's not a good decision for the couple. Am I the a-hole for how I handled the dealership situation? Her friend is also a little upset that I treated her boyfriend rudely at the dealership, but from my perspective, that wasn't my wife's friend's partner. That was a car salesman trying to put us in $800 a month debt for the next 5 years. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your wife is a target and a salesman's wet dream. I don't blame her. The newer Lexuses look like spaceships inside compared to her old Honda. Luckily, I knew enough about cars that I was able to sell her on a slightly used, upper-trim Honda Pilot with leather interior and a nice sound system, since she's a metalhead. X-Car Sales here. You are 1000% right, LOL. Every tactic you described is exactly what they do, lol. Good work. Yup. Ask for out the door and don't freaking answer any questions about financing unless you're being super vague. And you're never buying a car that day. Even if you want to, don't. You were kind of ambushed with something other than what you agreed on. Not the a-hole. I think you handled it the best you could. Yeah, this 100%. Ambushed, then gaslit. I bend over backwards to accommodate you, lend you my car, take public transit, come up with a mutual agreement that makes you happy and won't put us in debt. You completely disregard all of that. Go over my head and consult with 2 people who financially benefit from this transaction. Then ambush me at a dealership and expect me to sign paperwork? I point out this sleazy sales tactic, remind you this isn't what we agreed on, and you're mad at me? You're going to gaslight me into feeling bad about a situation you selfishly put yourself into, huh? OP is a way kinder man than I, not the a-hole. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife that being a stay-at-home mom to teens isn't a full-time job? My wife, 37 female, and I, 37 male, have been married for 15 years. We have 2 kids who are now 14 and 12. The eldest isn't mine, both in school from 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. The bus picks them up in front of our house and drops them off. Sometimes they'll have after-school activities and stay until 5 p.m., and I'll go pick them up after I get out of work on those days. They're becoming more independent now, and I had a discussion with my wife about how she could get a job. She's never had one besides being a stay-at-home mom now that the kids are older, and I'm retiring from my 20-year military career and could stay home and be a stay-at-home dad. She doesn't enjoy cooking or cleaning, so I figured it'd be best if I stepped into those roles so we could eat less takeout and have a healthier diet. The kids eat breakfast and lunch at school. When they go to school, she typically goes to the gym, yoga, then out for coffee, browses social media, goes shopping or window shopping, or gets her hair, nails, eyebrows, eyelashes, makeup, etc. done. Then comes home to cook dinner. I brought it up as gently as I could, but she still called me ungrateful and accused me of not appreciating all the hard work she does in the house. Now there's tension, and she's acting cold toward me. Am I the a-hole? Did you have this discussion about her getting a job once the children became more independent, or is this just another back burner issue you both ignored before she got pregnant? We discussed it. I paid for childcare and for her college while the kids were young, and now she has a bachelor's degree in psychology she hasn't used. My gut says you're screwed on this one. She's never had a job and doesn't sound like she wants one. So what is your post-military career going to be? I mean, even if she wanted to get a job, who is hiring a mid-30s, I assume woman with zero resume in today's job market? That's an uphill battle to say the least. Husband would have a much easier time finding a job, I suspect. Or they can get ready to live lean on the retirement salary. Grocery stores, gas stations, restaurants, local stores. Or if she's looking for something that she's qualified for, she could do daycare. Everyone has to start somewhere. These jobs aren't shameful just because they're entry level. Not sure what rank you're retiring at, but 1. Congrats on retiring. 2. Make sure you do your VA stuff. Make sure any ache or pain is documented, and make sure it's documented more than a couple of times. 3. Pick a low cost of living place to retire. 4. Predict your VA disability and retirement check. Then make a budget from there, because there's no guarantee that she will get a job. Show her the breakdown of your current cost of living or spending. 5. Also, get used to being paid once a month and learn how to budget that. It took me a few years after I got out to figure out how to manage going from 2 checks to 1. 6. Just be honest with your wife. Also to add, if he is eligible for the GI Bill, then that can be allocated to his children, at least partially. My sister and I split our dads. We each got 24 months, which helped a bunch. It also might grant in-state tuition if you attend an out-of-state institution, but that depends on the school.